This is Long COVID Advocacy, joining Unite to Fight to advocate for Long COVID and ME. We need deep systemic change for those with Long COVID, ME and infection-associated chronic conditions. That is why we are advocating to live, legislate, investigate, ventilate and educate. Because we want to live, not just exist. We can unite to fight. Legislate. We've seen through the pandemic that shifting the responsibility onto the individual to monitor their own and others' risk doesn't work. For equity and the safety of the vulnerable, well, anyone really, Long COVID is Russian roulette. Institutional responsibility is key. Many legal changes in public health have initially been met with an outcry, and then with us wondering with hindsight how on earth we partook of the social norms such as drink driving, smoking and no seatbelts. So if we had a few magic beans, what would we wish for? Enforceable health and safety regulations, effective indoor air quality regulations in public spaces, Long COVID to be classified as an occupational disease with compensation, and legal action for the consequences of harm, mistreatment and medical negligence and neglect. An inquiry is long overdue for ME. Long COVID and ME automatically qualify for disability under the UK Equality Act. There is a better way and we can do this. Investigate. This can be condensed to one sentence. Research the crap out of Long COVID and ME using a biomedical model. Or in other words, please look inside our bodies to find out what's going wrong so we can treat it. People must have a hope of recovery and for a life. Yet we need this to follow a biomedical model. There are three key areas, or the golden three, that need prioritisation. Biomarkers, pathophysiology, pharmacological treatment. The call for intense research funding for Long COVID is growing. We saw the 100 million a year call from the coronavirus APPG in the UK and the Long COVID moonshot of 1 billion a year in the States. The economic cost of Long COVID is growing and hard to comprehend. Oliver Curtis of Healthonomics adapted the economic analysis of Professor David Cutler of Harvard to the UK. 126 billion in reduced quality of life, 268 billion on reduced earnings, and 145 billion on increased spending on medical care, a total of 334 billion. How can we not afford to investigate Long COVID? Ventilate. We need to address the before, the prevention, ventilation. We are in a chronic dysutopia of perpetual reinfection, yet we have the technology, we have a way out. Engineering and systems thinking. What could we do? Immediate upgrading of ventilation and air filtration, government ventilation grants, open access online monitoring systems, visible CO2 monitors. We can legislate. Sir Patrick Vallance, ex-CSO, states in the event of another pandemic, the total cost of inaction could be up to 1.3 trillion. It's not only infection that is controlled with good indoor air quality, it's a situation where everyone wins, as there are other unilateral benefits. Reduction of asthma, allergies and disease, air and indoor pollution, equity and accessibility for the vulnerable and disabled, prevention of Long COVID and ME and infection-associated chronic conditions, safe learning and work conditions, increase in test scores, cognitive ability and attendance, future-proofing, and a compassionate and ecological environmental ethos. Why would we not do this? Educate. Many doctors have poor knowledge of Long COVID, ME and infection-associated chronic conditions and receive little to no training in medical school. Deep trauma and epistemic injustice is widely experienced in the patient community. We can see this in the recent research of Dr. Emma Porch, that the impact of establishment views about ME has a knock-on effect to the patient experience of healthcare for those with Long COVID. Education needs to take several forms as deep cultural change is needed. Infection-associated chronic illness from a biomedical perspective needs to be taught in all medical schools. Mandatory professional development for healthcare practitioners, international society and journal, a public health messaging campaign,